Oh, hi. We're on the train of Georgia Central Georgia Central train station. Hello to Jesse and Lexi and Jordan and Cameron. And that is our sweet little Jocelyn that enjoyed this wonderful our big train ride up and back. Oh, okay, good. Now we're going to the paint house. Good, are we going somewhere else? Paint house.
Paint house. They did talk about that, yeah. To keep your appendages inside.
Appendages inside.
All right, so we're back inside on our turntable here. So the next thing we're going to do is actually connect to this line right over here beside us. We're going to be leaving the 1850s era buildings that you see here and going over to the more modern end of our site. When I say modern, these buildings are still historic. They're actually 1920s buildings. They were not originally 1920s buildings, of course. They were built with the rest of the site. Unfortunately, in about 1919, they all burnt down. And since that is actually one of the most important sides of the site here, they rebuilt those as quickly as they could. So this side that we have seen already, this whole roundhouse area and the buildings behind it were all for steam locomotive repair, while the other side that we're headed to is actually for coach repair. So all the little rolling stock bits that you see right over here, these things would have been repaired over on the other side of the site where we're headed to. Now as we pass each one of those buildings, I'll tell you a little bit about its function. And unfortunately you can't quite see because of all these trees, but you'll be able to see our storehouse, our stripping yard, our coach, and our paint shops. And we'll be parking inside that paint shop once we get up to the end there.
Yeah, right here to the left of the flag is where passengers would board the trains, and it would be in that building with black roof.
Storehouse. It now houses our model train. If anybody has any interest in that, feel free to take a look. The open area here is the old stripping yards. That area with the roof, or the walls there that you see that belongs to the Children's Museum now. They used to have a roof until it caught on fire in 1980. The fire is kind of a running theme for this particular site. And once the stripping yard is actually when they would remove all of those materials and everything that they needed to have replaced, they would do that there, bring it out onto a transfer table and bring it parallel to all of these buildings. They would bring it out from that stripping yard and then bring it over to these 3 bays that we've just started to pass over here. Those are the coach shops. That's where all those actual repairs would be done. And once they've completed those repairs, they bring it back out onto that transfer table, run them parallel along here, and then bring it into the paint shops that we're coming up on right now. Now you may hear some complaining and singing from these rails here. These rails actually are not original to the site. We put these in so that we could access this end of the site. These buildings are still under preservation. This car actually acts as our hard hat here. And so when we put these rails in, we had a little bit of a job trying to do that. It's a very tight turn for any train to make. This is about as tight as you will ever see rails turning here. So that is why you hear a lot of complaining from the car itself and from the rails.
better do slow. Stay out. We're back out of here.
Welcome to our paint shops here. Now the purpose of this building is exactly what it sounds like. Once all of those coaches have been repaired, they'd be brought into these bays here. And these bays can comfortably fit 2 80-foot cars. And I say comfortably because when they bring these in, they actually are going to have to build scaffolding around each one of these cars so they can access every inch of it to be repainted. Now the reason for these open bays here, none of these actually had glass in these windows here. This was an open air building, and that was actually for circulation purposes because they're using oil paint at this point in time. Anybody who's ever worked with an oil-based paint knows it takes a very long time to dry and it needs a lot of ventilation for the fumes it creates. So that is the reason for all of this open area here. Gets a lot of wind in here, helps that paint dry a little bit faster because these cars are going to be out of commission until that paint is dry. Now the reason for all of this random stuff back here, this is actually kind of a temporary base for our preservation team. They're up here quite often repairing the roof and walls and things like that, trying to get this space ready because eventually, in the next few years, this will become an exhibit space for all of those coaches that you saw down there on the other end. All of our freight cars, the executive cars, everything will be brought up here because it's more historically accurate to have them up here where they would have been repaired rather than in a roundhouse where the locomotives all should be. So all these pieces that you see in these middle bays here, these smaller pieces in the bay closest to us, these are all architectural details off of our buildings here. They're removed for safety purposes and for preservation as well. You'll see a number of green tags on these who've actually been archived, and eventually they will become part of an exhibit or be put into our permanent archives awaiting a rotating exhibit. This machinery that you see here is actually not original to this site. Unfortunately, in the 60s, that was one of the first things to get sold off when the site was closed. Easy to move, easy to sell, and they needed the money. So pretty much all of the original machinery was sold off. We don't really have a way of tracking it, unfortunately. But we do have a lot of partnerships with some very generous museums that were nice enough to donate these to us, and they're all things that you would have found on a site like this for repair. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed the interesting graffiti throughout the building here. Savannah's